Mr. John Paranormal here. Are you going out and doing investigations? Quite often finding absolutely nothing, and then the moment that you find something, you get something like the Ouija Brothers video from 30 East Drive, and suddenly you get everybody coming onto you and debunking you because of Pramgate in that instance. Are you tired of people of doing your investigations and having people constantly trying to bring you down because they're part of a different community and have different ideas and different ideals? Then this is going to try and help you out a little bit, just a little, by bringing you just 3 main ideas of mine that we can try and involve in our investigations to make sure that we reduce the risks of people trying to bring us down from other communities and reduce the risks of things going wrong, i.e. being from other sources, man-made sources, instead of ghostly or paranormal experiences. Now, obviously, I've done a few videos. One, for instance, on the spirit box, and how can we how can we sort of get over the problems that are ineptly ingrained in that particular device. I've also done the REM pod type products and how we can try and reduce the risks of those being quickly debunked. And those 2 videos are very, very similar to this one, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you the thought of trying to get, when you start the investigation, how can I quickly do a quick risk assessment of what's going to be the main issue here as far as someone from a different community. Remember, you've probably hiked them off at some point in time, and that's why they're going to come across and try and cause havoc by saying that was all fake, and you say you're real. This was obviously a string, and the pram it was pulled down by the light string that was down the middle of the pram. You're always going to get them, but you've usually upset them, haven't you? So that's one of the things I would be saying first of all, is try and imagine all those people that you've really upset. And in some of the cases, these big groups like the Ouija Brothers, you'll be thinking of, there's a hell of a lot of people I've upset. But you're going to be talking about the fan base as usually. It's mainly going to come from the fan base. So what you've got to do is you've got to go in there, and my first suggestion is just have a think about this. You're going into a particular situation. Is the situation going to be easily targeted for being slightly antagonistic? Is it there to try and cause distress to people? Are people going to be able to grab hold of a certain aspect of where you are, of what you're doing? Mental hospitals, in America, I can imagine people going into those, and if someone wants to bring you down and start to debunk you and cause trouble, what are they going to do? How can you go into a mental institution? There's so much pain and so much anguish. People don't want to know. They don't want to have that all brought back, and you're far too close to when it closed down. You've got to think about the place that you are going, and you're going to think about, look, if people start to from the other communities that you've upset, if they start to see what you're doing, stop immediately at the beginning, think about it. Do a quick risk assessment. And I know people think of risk assessments as being total hocus pocus. However, in this instance, it can save you a lot of anguish when you've done the video and all of a sudden you didn't do it, and you get the influx of supporters of the several other kind of groups and communities that you've upset, all on top of you saying, well, that's fake and you shouldn't be doing that, and that's absolutely disgusting that you've gone into this place so soon after something's happened there. So do try and do a quick risk assessment, and do try and make sure that what you're doing or what you're going to do and what you're trying to achieve there isn't going to upset people from a perspective of where you are, and what sort of entities are you trying to pick up, and what happened there in that building or place where you are, is it going to be easily targeted by the people you've upset in the past, or at least their community? So secondly, it's very easy to start off with some of these devices, electronic devices and computerized devices and apps, and start to say, well, actually, we don't believe, we're not going to use them. And we start debunking other people and saying to other people, this is wrong. What you've got there is just pareidolia. What you've got there is just X, Y, Z. And you try and make sure that people see that this software, this app, or this device that they're using is absolute load of rubbish. We'll take the DR60, for instance. It is proven to be an absolute bag of garbage. And a lot of people have debunked them. And I use this for a reason, because I know 99.9% of you that have debunked this and said, no, this is a load of rubbish, we're not using it, won't go back to that particular device. But can you imagine using a DR60 and thinking, actually, it's been debunked so many times, we're not going to use it, and we're going to make sure that other people who are continuously using it, and obviously faking it by rubbing the back to make a sound of a noise, and then giving you the word, and you immediately sort of pareidolia, isn't it? You immediately hear the same word. And the problem is, if you go back to using that, thinking, actually, we might be able to use it, and as long as we use it in a very safe manner and keep it on top of a bit of foam in the middle, and we press it and we remove every bit where we touched it, and we just concentrate on that little bit in the middle, then we might be able to use it. And we've also got to make sure we've got cameras on us to make sure we don't move our arms and we don't sort of brush our foot on the floor. Then you can imagine people suddenly then coming back at you again and starting to say, look, this isn't right. You've debunked our the people we follow. Our community's disgusted. You've done all that, and then you've gone back to using the same app yourself. And I've seen this in case of such things as certain apps. Certain apps have started to come back into one or two of the Real Paranormal Group's investigations. So I'm thinking mainly about the GhostTube app here. The GhostTube app was used very widely, and then all of a sudden people started to debunk it. And I've had the same thing, lots and lots of the same phrase, the same words coming out. And then certain people said, actually, you could add words to it, and if you add the same word, it has a 500 word bank, doesn't it? And if you added one word 500 times, then 50% of the time it will automatically come up with that word. So if you give it your name, and you go into an investigation and say, what can you say the name of someone in here, please? You've got a 50% chance that that next word is going to be your name. So it was very easy to debunk, because people could easily cheat and fake the words coming out. Also, like I said, the same words kept coming out to the left. I'm to the left, or something. That was one of the ones that kept coming out. So I saw that, and a lot of people then stopped in real community, stopped using them. And then of late, I've seen, shall we use? Look, everything's a little bit quiet. Shall we use it? Well, that's all very well, but you're going to open yourself to the risk of people saying, you've spent all that time telling us that we're just concentrating on the app, and then you're going to use it for 10, 20 minutes doing exactly the same bloody thing. You're shooting yourself in the foot, and I can see why you do it, and I can see why these real groups have sort of started to sneak it in when it's really, really quiet. You need something to get the clicks, to keep people to stay tuned in and listen to things. However, realistically, guys and girls, if you start to using something, anything, and it may be a YouTube app, it may be something completely different, if you start to use it again after debunking it and saying it's a load of rubbish, you've got to be very, very careful, because you are opening yourself to all these other communities once again saying, hang on a minute, you just rip shreds out of the guys we support and follow and don't think they're fake. probably are, but hey, you've just done that, and now you're going to use the same device. So what we've got to do there is we've got to try and use it differently. We've got to try and make sure that when they come at us, and they will come at you, you can immediately push back and say, well, we didn't actually use it in the same manner. We used it differently. Like when I said about the DR60, we physically tried to take out certain instances. We've put it on a piece of foam on the opposite side of the room. We've tried to stand far away so you can't hear our trousers moving, and you can't hear the shuffling on the floor of the feet. We've actually took a video of us so that you can tell we're not moving a single bit, just asking the questions. And at least then you can say, look, we used it differently. REM pods, we put two just far enough away from each other so that we could use them as that one goes off and then that one. If they both go off together, then it could be a stray signal from a radio signal. But if they go off one at a time and they're sort of pretty close, pretty far away, just far enough away for them to not have the same. One can go off and then the other one can go off, or one can go off without the other one going off. Then we can start to say we've done it differently, and we've made sure that we're sort of not using it in the same way that we debunked it, guys. And you can come back with the reasons. Number two is, please, if you do debunk something and you do stop using it, and or you start to tell people that we shouldn't really be using this because it's giving us fake results, and the results aren't actually showing us that there are ghosts there. We've got to make sure that we're absolutely doing things in a way that is just that little bit different, that we can say, no, actually, we did do it differently, and we did try and make things a little bit different, so that it's not the same case study as the one we were picking on before. There are some new devices out, and I heard Beardo mentioning this. And saying, look, the manufacturer apparently puts them out and say, look, they don't detect ghosts or spirits. All they do is they are there to measure a certain thing, like the magnetic change in the atmosphere, or the temperature change in the atmosphere. And he said, look, I'm actually quite willing to use it. And the reason is because they're stating that it's not it doesn't show that there's ghosts around. It's just showing that there's a change in something: heat, temperature, magnetic energy, electrical energy. It's there and given exactly what it's doing. And they said, well, look, it's up to us then to work out whether the changes are in reaction to a specific question, and could we assume, which is very dangerous, that it's a ghost. Now, this also falls into that number two, because you've got to be very careful. Some of those devices are very, very similar to the devices that we've been saying don't use, because people are using them as soon as it goes off. They're saying it's a ghost, and it could just be a stray radio wave hitting the box and making all the lights flash. And you know that it could quite easily be something else. And they're claiming it's a ghost. You've got to be very careful, because you're going to get people exactly the same saying, look, that's just the same device as this. It's just that this has got more lights and bells, and it's got an antenna in the middle. And what's the difference? You're just going to use a totally different form of it, and just because it says it's not a ghost hunting device, you may then start to think, you're okay, but the people you've upset are going to come straight in at you. So you do have to be very careful of anything that you use that is even remotely similar to something that you've debunked, and you have your phraseology and your terminology totally correct for afterwards, when people from the other communities start attacking you. So the third one is a little bit different. The second one there is quite is the most important one, I would say. The third one is about going to the same locations again and again, and going to the same locations as other people in the same community. So if the fakers go to the same buildings, which they usually do, and if the real paranormal go to the same locations, which they generally do. The problem here is that the people watching, like me, as a rule, will look at you and they will expect exactly the same sort of thing. I've seen people go to certain places, and you see in the comments, oh, has David turned up yet? You're thinking. They remember everything that you did and all the call outs and what the equipment that you used, and they're just expecting the same thing back again. And if you get one really good investigation, and it got several moments where you think, that could be, that might not be the environment. This could be something really good and really spiritual. Then every time after that, your next investigations are going to be set against that one good investigation. And that means that people are going to get really disappointed every time you go back, and it's you just didn't get it, did you? You just didn't get that same buzz. I'm sorry, we're going to try and sort of we're trying to re-emulate what happened to prove that, perhaps prove it wasn't real and that it was just the environment, but we don't seem to be able to do it. Perhaps it was a spirit then. The only problem is you will always get the ones that start to turn off and start to switch off and say, I'm tired of this. They always go back to the same location. Now, I know there's not many locations, and I know people don't want to pay for things. So the free places, such as the derelict locations, and some of the always open locations like certain churches, abbeys, certain ruins, they're easy meat. They're places where we will go and we will try and make the most of it being completely free. However, this is what I would suggest, because we're trying to, at the end of the day, we're trying to keep people interested, and hopefully, if there's people who aren't channel owners out there listening to this, please do like and subscribe, because I do like to try and get your views as well, and I think I'm right in saying most of the people who are watching, they just want to see something different, want to see something new and exciting. However, if you go back to the same place and do exactly the same things, and they're expecting exactly the same results, and yes, you often say we'll probably get absolutely nothing. We'll probably get absolutely nothing, and usually you get exactly that, nothing at all. But that one time that it does happen and something starts to come back at you, that's where you're going to be judged for. So when you go back, we need to remember what we did in our 5-6 other visits to this place and try and jumble things up. Try and change things around, because at least then the people watching, we're not going to be going, oh, hang on a minute, that one, we did that in that investigation. Let's go back and see how well it went. We did that one in that. No, they only know how bad it is against that investigation because you do the same thing each time. It's just call outs, or it's just call outs at first, and then we do something else in the middle, but it's always a certain 1, 2, 3 things that we do. Then we need to be able to swap things around. Perhaps add two of these devices I said in number 2 that we try not to use. Well, yeah, perhaps use a spirit box and as a bit of fun. Say it's a bit of fun, but use it to try and break the investigation up, to try and make it look. This isn't just the same investigation that we've done 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times redone. I have seen people out there, and thank God you're doing it, guys. going into places and you've been there 4 or 5 times, and then you say, look, this is the last time we're going to do this location. This is your last time to come and speak to us. You've still done the same thing, though, on that last investigation as you've done for the previous 4 or 5. You're still going to make people turn off, and you're still going to make people unsubscribe because you're doing the same things. So try and change things around a little bit, even if it's just a little bit of a tweak, a little bit of an alteration in the format and how you do it. Like the S test, some people do masses of S tests in things, and they'll go to the same location and do. I've seen them do 45% of the time is just an S test, and I've seen people. I know people click off when after they get to the same location doing 45% of the S test for that video. 3-4 times, and they just click off because they're getting tired of the same test, the same method, and getting the same sort of responses. Because hell, you know exactly what you're going to say because you've said it 4 or 5 times the previous 4 or 5 times you visited it. It's in your head. You know what you're expected to say. So do be very careful about that. You can get both those things happening. You can get people clicking off because they're judging it against what you've done. Plus, you can also get you falling for that problem of saying, "Oh, is David there?" Because you got a response at some point saying David on the spirit box, perhaps, and it's funnily enough it came up a lot more often than usual. So you sort of jokingly made it perhaps David's here, and then next time you visited, oh, another David again, and you start to remember these things because you go there so often, and you automatically start asking for, calling out for the same things and thinking that it's pareidolia. You're thinking you're hearing these things, you're thinking you're seeing things in the same place that you saw last time, because I remember seeing a dark shadow in that corner last time. Oh, I've seen it again. So do remember, try and change things around, try and even if it's something you always do, like call outs, perhaps you reduce it down to just a couple because you always do 90% call outs. It's very good, but you're gonna be expecting that same good room for call outs is that room over there. So you're gonna go straight to it, do call outs in it, and guess what? The people watching are gonna expect the same results. So even though it's a really good place to do call outs, I would try at least once or twice not to do that in that room, because far from being a really good place to go, it can actually be quite detrimental to what you're doing. So do think about the places that you go quite regularly. Hopefully that helps you. Look, I think that I like to just give a little bit of what I used to do when I was working, and I used to do risk management, and I just think that if we do a little bit of risk management, a little bit of risk assessment here, sorry if I'm going technical, but if we do, we can try and change those risks, reduce the risk of people picking on your channel, and reduce the hassle and the annoyance of people from other communities coming across and trying to rip the shreds out of you, like the Ouija Brothers and Pramgate. So thank you for watching. Do like and subscribe, and we'll be back for more paranormal. It's Mystic John Paranormal. Like and subscribe.